Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and it's really disappointing when you lose a big one, and we just lost a huge one, and I think this really needs to speak to the people that think that this administration has Superman chest plates on, a cape, and is ready to take down everything that is evil. The truth is, they are protecting and enabling many of these people. Now, we all remember when Epstein had his case reviewed after the deal that was found to be made by Acosta was found to be criminal, illegal, under the Victims' Rights Act, right? So they look at all this stuff, and this is what we get. This is what we get, guys. And I'm going to try to refrain my language for later. This is what we get. Jeffrey Epstein plea deal must stand. Prosecutors tell sex abuse victims. Once secret Epstein deal must stand, feds say. Now, of course, it's a disgusting loophole. Has nothing to do. Here's the deal. Even though they know it was violated, Congress didn't specifically put what the victims would be allowed to have, what their rights were in case it was violated. So they're not even going to get an apology. They don't even get a sorry. Do you hear what I just said? They don't even get a sorry. So we're gonna watch a lot of stuff. And by the way, I want to point out, anybody that thinks that AG Barr is going to come in here and save the day, he recused himself. We're going to watch video of him recusing himself because he worked for one of the law firms that represented Epstein back in the day. So he has to recuse himself. So this is it. This might be the final nail in the coffin in the whole deal right now, guys. So let's read a little bit of this because it's pretty disgusting. Suspected sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein was handed another break by the DOJ on Monday when federal prosecutors rejected his victim's efforts to throw out the plea deal and prosecute him for abusing dozens of underage girls. Now, before I continue reading, I want to point out that later in this article, that out of the dozens that they interviewed, Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, and 16 others, their sources saying, 18 of these girls, women now, wanted him prosecuted. So they, no problem. In the 35-page motion filed in federal court in the Northern District of Georgia, federal prosecutors said there is no legal basis to invalidate Epstein's non-prosecution agreement, and they warned the federal judge in the case against doing the same. Don't do it, Judge. Don't you think about it. Don't you even think about it. U.S. Attorney B.J. Pack said that because Congress did not outline specific penalties, see this loophole? See this fist up the rectum of everybody that's already been abused? They don't care. Guys, this is a billionaire. This is a guy that owns your institutions and politicians. That's who this is. You dare question the deal we gave him and his cronies? How dare you? So there were no specific penalties in the Crimes Victims' Rights Act when it was created by Congress. So again, they created an act to say, hey, you have to meet with these victims. They have to be okay with the deal you're giving the vicious monster that's abused these people or harmed a loved one, etc. But then, when it happens, there's no penalties. So they're not even saying it didn't happen. They're just like, hey, sorry. That's how the system works. Epstein's victims have no right to demand anything from the government, not even an apology. A federal judge ruled earlier this year that the plea deal violated that legislation. So again, a federal judge, I believe it was Marpa, who also called him a serial abuser. And wait till you hear what Jack Scarola has to say. We're gonna actually play Jack Scarola from months ago in the Bradley Edwards case where they beat Epstein, where they start talking about this process. And they're hopeful I was hopeful. Acosta was getting grilled wherever he went. People were talking about this case. Hey, tonight's the first Democratic debate. You think this important issue's coming up? I doubt it. I doubt it. In the filing, federal prosecutors did concede that the U.S. Attorney's Office in South Florida failed to treat Epstein's victims, most of whom were 13 to 16 years old, fairly. So they totally agree that they didn't treat them fairly, and they violated the Crimes Victims Rights Act. But they said that the law gives prosecutors discretion in deciding how to dispose of a case. Victims have a right to confer with prosecutors, but no rights beyond that, Pack said. Oh, you get to meet with them, but other than that, fuck you. Who cares? You're just a victim. You're a poor person. Do you understand? Your place in society is to serve others. You are subservient. You don't get the same justice as somebody who earns $1 million a year, $10 million a year, $100 million a year. And if you're a billionaire, you can have multiple properties, multiple jets, flight records with Hollywood celebrities, big-time executives, presidents of the United States, and nobody bats an eye, huh? Huh? This guy, right here, this guy, gonna walk again. So, I want to point out just one more thing in here. I want to read Scarola, because Scarola says some pretty powerful stuff. Jack Scarola, one of the victims' attorneys, said the government's remedies ignore an important element in the case that Congress could have predicted when it created the Crimes Victims Act in 2004. Congress didn't provide for remedies for circumstances like this because it was inconceivable to Congress that there would be a conspiracy between the government and a serial child molester. Who could have conceived of that? All right. Now, before we go to Scarola, and we will, see right here, we're going to go to him. And this is Bradley Edwards next to him. He's the one that won. These are lawyers that represented some of the victims who filed a defamation suit against Epstein. And when that was ready to go to court, when they were about to pick the jury, Epstein settled, signed a statement essentially saying everything that Edwards had done was legal and correct to his job, and then paid off a, undisclosed amount. Lord knows how much he had to pay. Because I can tell you this, over a decade of the kind of legal work these guys did against this monster, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. So here it is. This is Barr recusing himself. Ben Sass, this was when he was being confirmed. Didn't make a lot of headlines. I did a video on it. But again, other than independent media and a handful of mainstream outlets like the Miami Herald, it really wasn't talked about.
I'd like to look at the November 28th Miami Herald investigative series that I know that you followed into the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, and I want to quote from that. Epstein, a wealthy hedge fund manager, quote, assembled a large cult-like network of underage girls with the help of young female recruiters to coerce into having sex acts behind the walls of his opulent waterfront mansion as often as 3 times a day, close quote. The report continues, he was also suspected of trafficking minor girls, often from overseas, for sex parties at his other homes in Manhattan, New Mexico, and the Caribbean.
So let's stop there. Manhattan, New Mexico, the Caribbean. Now remember, in this deal, everybody had assumed that the first girl who had accused him, I believe, was either 13 or 14 years old. So they all assumed that he pled to that charge. He did not. He pled to a charge of a 16-year-old girl, and that's significant because in 30 states in the United States of America, you don't have to register as a sex offender when that happens. All right, so Sass just mentioned all of the trafficking allegations between many of his residencies.
Series continues, quote, in 2007, despite ample physical evidence and multiple witnesses corroborating the girls' stories, federal prosecutors and Epstein's lawyers quietly put together a remarkable deal for Epstein, then age 54. He agreed to plead guilty to 2 felony prostitution charges in state court, and in exchange, he and his accomplices received immunity from federal sex trafficking charges that could have sent him to prison for the rest of his life.
Well, let's stop that.
He served 13 months in a private wing.
And even the 13 months, I mean, he's going to get into it. But Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of Robert Maxwell, the media mogul, the alleged Mossad agent who was found murdered, She basically doesn't want all of these documents to come out. Now, the Herald has been pushing for all the documentation on all the Epstein cases to come out. Still hasn't. And there are still suits with Guffrey and others with Epstein that Scarola and I believe Edwards are still representing. So there is more going on. But again, with the Department of Justice, the federal overturning of this ridiculous deal, now that Acosta is the labor secretary, and he went on the record and said that the evidence was shown to a grand jury and they weren't going to recommend any jail time for all of these allegations. Again, if you haven't seen those videos, guys, I've done them. Let's scroll right down. They're a little earlier on, but I've done tons of Epstein. In this one, we find out there were over 80 alleged victims that came forward to the Miami Herald. Okay, we've only heard of the 30 or so and maybe 60 or so in other reports. All right, there we go. The FBI looked at trafficking allegations all the way back in the 90s. All the way, Maria Farmer, look her up. She says that she saw Dershowitz at his home in New York in the late 90s. Of course, Dershowitz denies these claims. We do deep dives into Dershowitz. We showed how Epstein's, he donates to Elton John's charity. Isn't that lovely of him? Here's Acosta being ripped apart by Kim Clark, I believe her name is, right? Or it's either that or Kathy Clark. And then there's another one of him getting ripped apart. We've done a ton of deep dives into this. So we're going to continue on so you can see how Barr recuses himself.
Of the Palm Beach County Stockade, his alleged co-conspirators who helped schedule his sex sessions were never prosecuted, and the deal, called, again, this is the Miami Herald, a federal non-prosecution agreement, was sealed so that no one, not even his victims, could know the full scope of Epstein's crimes and who else was involved, close quote. The fact that federal prosecutors appear to have crafted this secret sweetheart deal for a child rapist obviously enrages moms and dads everywhere. On this particular case, will you commit to making sure that there's a full and thorough investigation into the way DOJ handled the Epstein case?
So, Senator, I have to recuse myself from Kirkland and Ellis.
Kirkland and Ellis. There it is. Kirkland and Ellis. I have to recuse myself. I can't get, these are repugnant crimes. They're terrible. But I can't, it's not me. You can't put it on me. Department of Justice, and now we know.
Matters, I am told. And I think Kirkland and Ellis was maybe involved in that case. So I need to sort out exactly what my role can be. But, I will say that if I'm confirmed, I'll make sure your questions are answered on this case.
Thank you. The Deputy Attorney General, obviously there have been media reports about the timing of his potential departure post your confirmation, and the DAG, as you well know from your prior history, has a key responsibility in deconflicting different parts of the department. Those of us who've been pressing on this matter have found in different parts of the department a lot of anxiety about the way this was handled, and yet kind of a hot potato of a bunch of people thinking they're not responsible.
Yeah, it's not me responsible. It ain't me. I can't help you. Department of Justice can't help you. The 18 victims that still want justice in this case, we can't help them. They get nothing right here, by the way. All right, that's that right there. All right, in the ruling that the plea deal was illegal, Judge Mara, who ruled that the thing was illegal, Mara directed lawyers for the victims and the government to file legal briefs outlining ways to resolve the case. Two of Epstein's victims, Jane Doe 1 and 2, said they want the deal invalidated and Epstein prosecuted, and sources tell them 16 more. So 18 victims after all this still want justice, want to demand justice, real justice, criminal justice. No mas. No mas. It reminds me of when Mueller was working for Trump and there were secret indictments and he was going to bring down Hillary and Podesta. It was coming any day now. And now Barr is going to take everybody out.
Right now, Rod Rosenstein has been helping, trying to deconflict some of that, but I'm worried if with your potential recusal, if the DAG also departs, it's not clear who's going to actually deconflict this. So I'm grateful for your pledge that the department will be responsive, even if not you personally.
Yes, that's right.
More broadly than the miscarriage of justice in this particular Florida case, would you agree that justice has nothing to do with the size of your bank account or the number of attorneys you can hire?
Yes.
I agree, and I think that a whole bunch of Americans wonder about the Department of Justice and how we're trying to prioritize, or how we should be prioritizing, our responsibility to the victims of sex trafficking who are left afraid and voiceless. In this particular case, many of the women who were clearly victims, trafficked, rape victims, had no awareness of the fact, and I think in violation of federal statutes of victim notification, that this non-prosecution agreement.
No, absolutely. No, you're 100% right. No, he committed heinous crimes, and absolutely, I'm going to do nothing about it. And I'm going to say to you that I can't do anything about it because I work for a law firm that represents monsters like this on a regular basis, Mr. Sass. By the way, Joe Howard, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. You rock, my friend. So here it is. I mean, check it out. This is the deal.
Had been agreed to, and not just that Epstein and his co-conspirators were not indicted, but the rest of the investigatory matters of the department were also suspended. It seems truly bizarre.
So bizarre.
I think moms and dads watching this hearing would like to know that you will pledge broadly to attack sex trafficking as a scourge in our society on both the supply side and the demand side, as these dirtbags demand this, but on the supply side as organizations clearly perpetrate these crimes. Can you pledge to us that this will be one of your priorities at the department?
They can count on it.
They can count on it. They can count on me recusing myself, and then the department saying that it'll stand. It stands. Woo! They're entitled to nothing because of a loophole. Fuck you, victims. Unreal. So, I'm not going to play the full 20-minute press conference, 20-plus minutes after Edwards, the younger gentleman, who was represented by Scarola, and again, both of them represented some of the victims through this case. He's going to explain how all this came about, how they were going to hear it out, and who these people are, really.
Well, could be the possibility of prosecution at the federal level based upon the illegal plea bargain that was entered into.
Do you think Secretary Acosta should resign?
We have not yet heard the rest of the story with regard to Secretary Acosta.
Damn straight.
He certainly hasn't spoken. I am hopeful that the congressional investigation that is being spoken of takes place. We will get more of the story at that point in time. I'm not here to call for Secretary Acosta's resignation. I don't know all the facts. I know that the facts that are known demand further answers.
And let's stop it there. Again, Acosta has said some crazy things in those separate hearings. Now, he's saying that when he presented this evidence to a grand jury, they didn't recommend any jail time. That's insanity. That hasn't been followed up upon is insanity. Complete and utter insanity. If you believe that, I mean, did he perjure himself there? Can he prove that? I just don't see it. So, again, this deal is beyond belief. It still is. They're being protected by the DOJ, and we were hoping more was going to come out, but we can't even get the original deal unsealed.
What are the precedents for a non-prosecution agreement like this legally, and are there legal precedents then to undo something like that?
There is no precedent for a non-prosecution agreement like this. I am completely unaware of any non-prosecution agreement extending immunity to unnamed co-conspirators for unidentified crimes. I am entirely unaware of secrecy having been expressly bargained for in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. One of the things that encourages us about the possibility of setting aside this plea bargain is that it was indeed Jeffrey Epstein and his dream team of high-powered, high-priced lawyers who insisted upon the secrecy provisions in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. That puts Epstein in a position where it becomes difficult, if not impossible, for him to argue, I want to enforce a contract that I required have provisions that were violative of the Crime Victims' Rights Act included in the contract. The contract was illegal from the outset. He knew it was illegal from the outset. It needs to be set aside. We need to start from the beginning with regard to issues with respect to that prosecution.
And so
Damn
then you're
straight.
saying that the feds, if they decided to file charges, the statute of limitations wouldn't apply.
I am saying that there's a very good argument that no statute of limitations applies with regard to the federal charges.
I mean, he's laying it all out right there, guys. This is back in December. And what did our DOJ do? Nope, it's going to stand. It's going to stand, everybody.
Sure.
Take a look.
There are some similarities, different age group targeted victims, but there are some similarities.
She asked about
And
Weinstein.
The most striking is the degree of power. I mean, you saw it first with Cosby, and people thought nobody's going to believe me. This guy is, he's the pudding pot man. And then you have Harvey Weinstein, who's basically running Hollywood, and that's somebody who Jeffrey Epstein knows. Those are people that know one another, and they run in the same circles. And once the victims started coming forward one after another, how many times, even after 5, 6, 7 victims of Harvey Weinstein had come forward, were there still doubters? It wasn't until there were so many that Harvey Weinstein himself just couldn't take on the barrage of complaints that everybody said, you know what, that's right. So the victims here see the same thing. You know, as the numbers increase and as the skepticism decreases, and as we have a day like today where Jeffrey Epstein has admitted to wrongdoing, it's only going to increase the confidence of these young women who are now further along in their healing process than they were 10 years ago when we met them.
And by the way, again, that is Bradley Edwards. He's the man that beat Epstein in court. If you see the stacks of documents behind them, it's much more from a wider angle. That's the documentation they were taken to court against this guy during this jury selection. And again, he folded right away. But you know what? He doesn't have to fold when it's the Department of Justice and AG Barr. Oh, I always say that. Bill Barr. Recusing himself. So yeah, he just, no big deal. And now, the deal's going to stand.
So the chances of this moving in the right direction and having a situation like we had in a courtroom where you saw Larry Nassar and had to face one Olympic gymnast after another, that day should come, and that day will come.
We hope so.
I disagree with Brad with regard to one significant point. These high-profile abusers are not running in the same circles. They are slithering in the same circles. They are crawling in the same circles. And there is no more running because there is no more place to hide.
And that's why, guys, when bullshit like this happens, we got to fight harder. That's why I do what I do. That's what this is about. I mean, seriously, we've got to go even harder. They slither in the same circles. And we got to say, Acosta, no fucking way. Everywhere he goes. We want to know the ins and outs of that deal. It needs to be public. And we got to tell Barr and the Department of Justice this is unacceptable behavior. Again, we're about 2 hours away from mostly, I'm hoping that Tulsi Gabbard, brings up some real issues in there, but a bunch of military-industrial complex establishment puppets are going to spout nonsense for 2 hours and get light applause as the establishment promotes them, and none of them are going to have the guts to take this on. And it needs to be taken on, head on. And you guys got to help me out. So please share this video. If you're not subscribed, now's the time to do it. We're doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos a day. What is this, number 3 or 4? I believe this is number 3. We're going to be doing some other videos later tonight. I might even do an after Democratic debate live stream AMA broadcast where we talk about the debate. So if you end up watching the debate, check my channel. We could absolutely end up doing that. But guys, I need your support. I'm on my own. I've started to GoFundMe. Here it is. It's that simple. I'm putting 30 to 50 videos out a week. We talk about real topics. It's about right and wrong. It's not about left and right. I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, whatever. We're human beings. We got to work together. There are child traffickers that are billionaires working with high-level executives, politicians, and people within that military-industrial complex, and they're not being brought to justice. And that's That's some things that I can't get behind. So if you're behind Real Media, please support me. If you can't, again, share this stuff. Share it with a friend. Put it in the email. I appreciate all your support, guys. I'll see you on the flip, and maybe later tonight after the Dem debate. Thank you all for watching.